Hey guys, Shy Got Picks here. Hope everyone's doing well, having a great week. We're here to break down UFC Fight Night, Lemos versus Jandiroba. We're going over every single fight in the card, the best bets, what fights we should avoid, round props, as well as any possible parlays. Let's get into it. Wanted to start off and show the record that I do have on Tapology at Shy Got Picks. That's two H's on Shy, so that's SHHY. I did start on 2-2-2-2-2. That's February 22nd, 2022, with a record of 414 wins and 168 losses. That's a respectable 71.1% win rate. As you can see on the leaderboards below that I predict on multiple cards, not just UFC. I'm also unranked because I haven't updated my Tapology as of recently, so I'm deranked. Yeah, so it deranked me essentially. But we will be getting that rank back up eventually. But for now, let's break down this card. First on the card, we have Muhammad Usman versus Thomas Peterson. All right, well, going into this, Usman's 35 years of age, 1-inch height advantage, big 5-inch reach advantage. Peterson's going into this 29 years old, coming off of a loss by Jamal Pogues, which isn't a good to look at whatsoever. In the LFA, he knocked out Vernon Davis for the belt, but right after that, he faced Waldo Acosta-Cortez, which is on a different level currently than Peterson. And we could see that in the UFC currently, But Mo isn't the best fighter either, by all means, at all. But he does have potential to knock him out, which I don't think Peterson possesses. I think he actually is kind of small for the division as well. This is a low-level heavyweight fight for sure. No wrestling from Peterson against Pogues, which doesn't really necessarily make sense. Doesn't look good. Truthfully, neither fighter looked good. Pogues nor Peterson. Peterson just kept grappling his hands, couldn't get his striking going because he is a wrestler, but he couldn't wrestle, which, it's weird. He was just walking forward. Muhammad does train with his brother Kamaru. That's pretty big. Kamaru Usman, the former champion, we all know him. Mo just needs to stay on the feet. I could see a world where Peterson can bring him down, and if he does, then maybe he does win. This is a fight that I'm completely trying to avoid. You will not see me touch this fight with a 5-yard stick. I'm not going to play any money on this. But if I had to choose somebody, I'm probably going to choose Mo. I think Mo is going to keep this on the feet. He's bigger. He has the reach here. If Peterson can't take down Pogues, I don't see him taking down Usman. But then again, we've never seen Usman we've never seen someone try to take Usman down. So it's can he handle that? Maybe Usman knocks him out. I kind of doubt it at the same time. But overall, I got Mo. I'm just not impressed with Thomas Peterson. Give me Usman by decision. Next up on the card, we got Luana Carolina versus Lucy Pudilova. Ultimately, I don't like Pudilova. I don't think she's a good fighter. I don't like these odds at all. I don't get why Luana Carolina is plus 100. I very much picture by the time that Saturday comes around, she'll probably be a slight favorite, probably towards negative 120, negative 125. I just don't like Pudilova. She's had 10 fights in the UFC. She's lost 7. It kind of makes sense it kind of doesn't make sense besides the fact that she's a veteran. She got dominated in her last fight. She almost pulled off a late submission, but that's basically about it. Pudilova doesn't have good defense whatsoever. She doesn't stop. That's kind of what she does. She'll be getting pieced up and keep going. That's her style. She goes into wars, but she has really bad defense. If Carolina can land her strikes or kicks, do some damage, I think she's bigger. She's big for the division. Pudilova basically just carries experience here, and her division. Her defense is just isn't great. Luana comes in with more skill. She was taken down to the mat by Stoliarenko, and even though Stoliarenko's game plan, she got messed up in the crucifix by Luana Carolina. So overall, I don't agree with these odds. I don't understand why she's a plus 100. I'm sure she'll be plus negative 130. I'm sure she'll be a negative 130 by Saturday. But yeah, give me Carolina by decision. I do like this play. I would actually even put her straight on this. Up next up the card, Loic Razabov versus Trey Ogden. Going straight into this one. This one's a wild card. I also will not be touching this fight whatsoever. And it's specifically because Trey Ogden's a wild card himself. Going into Razabov just beat Abdul Karim El Sawadi, who I think is a really good fighter, who I also think fights a lot like Trey Ogden, which is why I'm probably going to be leaning towards Razabov. Is just Trey Ogden is such a wild card. It's so weird, He goes into the UFC, gets kicked 50 times by Jordan Levitt, who's a BJJ fighter, right? And then he comes into the next fight, fucks up Zellhuber on the feet, going tit for tat. So he's really tricky, In his next fight, he fights Bahamundes and loses, which is not a bad loss whatsoever. But then after that, faces Nicholas Mota. He's a grappler facing a boxer in Mota, and then outboxes Mota. So he's just his career is very odd. He's very unpredictable. Against Halabal, it's only grappling, a very boring fight, and he wins. Is he trash? Is he good? I really don't know. Rajabov Rajabov is a wrestler who likes to box with a trash cardio. Against Rebecca, he got fucked up, and then he looks solid against Abdul Karim Al Sawadi. It's tough. I'm leaning towards Rajabov mainly because I do think that Trey Ogden fights a lot like Al Sawadi. But since Trey Ogden's such a wild card, I can't lay any money on this fight. But I am leaning towards Rajabov and Rajabov to win by decision. Up next on the card, we got Miranda Maverick versus Dion Barbosa. Now, I think this is a very simple one to break down. I think this comes down to Barbosa with her BJJ. The thing about it is, though, is that her cardio just isn't there. She got very tired in her debut by the second round, and ultimately, this is Miranda Maverick we're talking about. She's been against some of the best in the UFC. She's real competition. She's legit. She can box, she can wrestle, she has good cardio. She's very well rounded and comes in with a lot of experience. Barbosa, the way she wants to win and needs to win, and she needs to get this to the ground early and win early by decision. I think that's her only path to victory against Miranda Maverick. I think Miranda Maverick is too good overall. She's too well rounded. She's young. She got the experience. She knows what to do in these type of situations. I think overall she's going to be better than Dion Barbosa, and I think she's going to show that. I don't like the negative 205 price tag. I probably wouldn't be pacing that in any straights, but I do think this is a super, super solid parlay piece. I actually really like the idea of adding her on to, a two-leg with Carolina or a two-leg with a couple of other players on next in the card, I definitely think this is a super solid parlay piece. Give me Miranda Maverick by decision. Up next on the card, we got Brian Kelleher versus Cody Gibson. This is another fight that I'm absolutely not going to be touching with, any of my money. Both of these fighters are not really good fighters whatsoever, and you got Cody Gibson coming into this fight as like a negative 230 favorite. And it does make sense, this fight is going to be a fight against two old heads, but it's going to be very exciting. Gibson against Brad Katona was an absolute war. He had no defense whatsoever, but it was a fantastic fight. All out offense, just no defense. It's not a good game plan. He did the exact same things against Miles Johns, no defense. He looks like he really can't get much done just because he's getting pieced up and absorbing all his damage all the time. But against Brian Kelleher, who's very old, nearing the end of his career, just came off of a neck surgery. He just got brutally KO, that nasty KO loss against Cody Garbrandt. That in combination with the neck injury, it just doesn't make sense for me to not pick Cody Gibson here by decision. At the end of the day, it is Cody Gibson. I don't think he's that good of a fighter. He's 19-10. But then again, Brian Kelleher is 24-15. This is a very low level fight, but it can be a good one. Ultimately, it's a 36-year-old facing a 37-year-old with bad records. But, I think stylistically, Cody Gibson's style isn't good, but his style can work against Kelleher. Cody's actually going to want this type of style against Kelleher, especially coming off that nasty K off of Cody Garbrandt. So, yeah, give me Cody Gibson and Cody Gibson by decision. Up next on the card, we got Young Lee versus Hyder Emil. I think this is going to be the fight of the night. I think this is going to be a great fight. This is going to be a good fight. It's going to be super high in super high pace. Emil's looking very good as a good prospect. I don't know how much you can call him as a prospect because he is 34 years old. But he does come into this with very high pace. He really fucked up Fernie Garcia in his debut. Very high pace, mixed in some boxing with some grappling. But Lee is a very big 145, with very effective boxing. But ultimately, Lee does get tired in the final round. So I think this comes down to the first two rounds. With Hyder Emil, if he's willing to fight everywhere, bring his opponent into a high-paced fight, tire his opponent out. That's his style, walk forward, get into his face, box, bring him down, and all that high pace. If you can get Lee fatigued, that's exactly what Emil wants, But Lee's boxing is legit. If his job and body shots show up in the first round while Hamil's pressing him up early, then this could be an easy decision for Lee if he wins the first 2 rounds. You know, he's a sharper boxer. I do think he can get this done against Hyder. Emil just needs to drown him out with pace, especially because Lee can get tired by the third round. So, I could see this going either way. I don't like the negative 185 price tag, but at the end of the day, Lee is younger. He is 28 years old, versing a 34-year-old, and I've been mentioning it this whole card. I'm not betting against these. I'm not betting my money with these older guys anymore. I'm just not doing it. Give me Jung Young Lee. Give me Jung Young Lee by decision. I think his boxing's legit. I think he's big for the decision. Give me Lee. Next up in the card, we got Do Ho Choi versus Bill Aljo. This is going to be short for me. I just don't like Bill Aljo. I don't like his last fight against Kyle Nelson. He did not look good defensively. Ultimately, it's weird because he's way more active than Do Ho Choi, who hasn't fought in a while. I'm talking about that loss against Kyle Nelson 3 months ago. His last fight, Do Ho Choi's last fight, is also against Kyle Nelson 1 year, 5 months ago. It was a draw. Which is ultimately why I'm going to be picking Duo Choi here. It is the way they both fought Kyle Nelson. It's just hard because Duo Choi is 3-1-1 in his last 5 with a draw, 3 losses, and one. No, he's 1-3-1 is what I meant to say. 1 draw, 3 losses, and 1 loss. And his last win coming 8 years ago. He got that amazing fight against Cub Swanson, but he didn't eventually lose it. He got knocked out by Jeremy Stevens and got knocked out by Charles Jourdain. Ultimately, this comes down to Kyle Nelson and how they both fought against Kyle Nelson. I know the MMA math never really actually maths, but ultimately, Doo Ho Choi, he's not active, but he is 33 years old. Meanwhile, Bill Algeo is 35, and I'm not picking these older fighters that are just trash. I'm just not doing it anymore. Um, Give me Duho Choi. I'm not going to be putting money on it. I think I'm going to just enjoy the fight because Duho Choi's fights are usually very entertaining. Give me Duho Choi. Honestly, give me Duho Choi by knockout. I could see, you know, the thing about it is that he could certainly crack someone, and Aljo's chin has looked exposed recently, and he is a lot older. So ultimately, I'm picking Choi because I don't trust Aljo. Give me Choi by knockout. All right, next up on the card, we got Cody Durden versus Bruno Silva. You know, this is a complete pick'em fight. I believe it's negative 120 to plus 100. It's definitely a coin flip. Will Durden get Silva down? Will Silva get back up? Probably. I think he'll be able to scrap around the cage, get up. I see Durden imposing his game plan early, but I also see Silva, seeing some holes in Durden's plan, being able to, you know, get back up when taken down, but will Durden take him down multiple times? It comes down to who can do more. It's a pick 'em for a reason. The odds makers know what they're doing here. Silva can submit him while he's down there, but Durden can easily just keep him down there and controlling him for 5 minutes and do that round for round. I could also see Silva getting up, giving him some of those nasty calf kicks. But I can also see that motivating Durden to catch a kick and keep him down there. This is a complete pick 'em. It can literally go either way. But, if I had to choose one, give me Durden and give me Durden by decision. Up next in the card, we got Hollowball versus Khrushchevsky. We don't really know much about Khrushchevsky, right? He looked good in the Contender Series, but didn't really look good in his debut, so there's really not much to go off of. Besides the fact that Hollowball is old. That's basically about it. He's old school. He goes forward a box, very old school. Khrushchevsky got a 1-inch height advantage, 3-inch reach advantage. We really don't know much, but I'm just going to fade the idea that Hollowball is old. I don't really think he's that good, and we're definitely going to be fading old and bad fighters. So give me Khrushchevsky, give me him by knockout. All right, up next on the card, we got Garcia versus Seung Woo Choi. Very much should be a coin flip. Probably going to stay at those odds. It really depends on who will impose their will more here. Garcia is very aggressive, but his defense is trash. He'll go forward and leave himself open to counters, and he really hasn't improved on that. But he does go forward and try to break down his opponent. And Choi's chin can be exploited. He could be winning a fight and then get knocked out of nowhere, literally. Garcia does leave himself open, but Choi's chin is very questionable here. So it's kind of one of those things on who do you pick here, you know? I'll probably lean on probably Garcia. The matchup does make sense here, you know, if you really think about it. Choice Chin is probably going to get checked here by Steve Garcia, and I only see the odds only going up a little bit more, maybe towards a negative 130, something like that, you know? Um, I think this is one of those things that, you know, let's go into the stats more. You know, Garcia is 1 year older than him. He's 32, and Wu Choi is 31. But you know, if you go back into his recent wins, he's knocked out Chase Hooper, he's knocked out Shailene Nerdin Beckett, and he's knocked out Costa. While Sung Woo Choi comes into this with 3 losses out of his last 5. Um, give me Steve Garcia and give me Steve Garcia by knockout. I'd say second round. Hey guys, before we get into the co-main event and the main event, I just want to pause for a quick second just to ask if you guys can please like the video, as it helps me a lot with the algorithm, of course, and subscribe if you found this video helpful. All right, moving on. Up next on the card, we got the co-main event, Tavares versus Jung Young Park. You know, I'm actually very excited for this fight. It should be entertaining. I do, you know, Tavares takes a lot of damage. He has a lot of experience in there. He's fought some of the best in UFC. But, you know, Park has some really good boxing. He's big, he can grapple. And he is younger, believe it or not. You wouldn't think that he's younger, but Tavares, he is younger than Tavares, you know. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately whether or not Tavares' experience can show here, you know, but I kind of doubt it. You know, the best bet here, in my opinion, is that this fight goes to decision. Tavares is known for always going to decision. He even went to decision with Dricus Duplessis. I do know that 2 of his last 3 fights have he got knocked out, but you know sometimes you can only take so much damage, right? I don't see Jung Young Park knocking him out. If this does stay inside the distance, I do think that Jung Young Park would maybe even submit him, maybe, but I don't see him knocking him out. You know, Tavares is known for taking a lot of damage and going to the decision. So ultimately, those are my 3 picks here. I think Park is going to win. I think he's going to win by decision. I don't think that this fight will end inside the distance. So, you know, I think that's how it goes. I think it's going to go to decision, and I think Jung Young Park will win. I don't think Tavares has looked good as of late. He's one of my favorite fighters, albeit, you know, I like him. He's entertaining. He's fought a lot of the who's, but he's definitely on the decline lately. So give me Park by decision. On to the next fight, we have the main event of Amanda Lemos versus Verna Jandiroba. You know, this calls down to the grappling versus the striking, right? Jandiroba's grappling and BJJ is top notch. If she gets Amanda Lemos to the ground, I think this is essentially game over. But, you know, ultimately, they're both rather old. Lemos is 37, Jandiroba is 36. And, you know, Lemos doesn't have the best cardio, which I do think is going to be tested by Jandiroba's wrestling. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about Lemos' stand up, that's going to be very, very scary for Jandiroba. Her stand up isn't the greatest. She is tough, but she's all about her jiu-jitsu, you know, which is basically a Mackenzie Dern. You know, Lemos definitely just beat up Mackenzie Dern. I do want to point out there's kind of some circumstances beyond the UFC with her divorce and, you know, her having to pay for the divorce. So maybe that did put, you know, have an effect on how she performed against Lemos. But ultimately, Mackenzie Dern is a lot like Jandiroba. But I don't think that she's going to perform the way Mackenzie Dern performed against Lemos, of course, you know. Um, I could see her taking Jandiroba's leg away as well with her cat kicks. But I can also see Jandiroba wrapping her arms around her and, you know, keeping her down there. You know, ultimately it comes down to who can execute the game plan better. It's absolutely a pick 'em. I don't think this fight will go to the decision. I think either Jandiroba will submit her, or I think Lemos will knock her out. The fight not going to decision is negative 180, negative 190, negative 200. So the odds makers seem to agree with me, but if you go on Tapology, not many seem to agree with that. A lot of them think that they'll just go to decision. You know, ultimately, is it a woman's fight? Most women fights do go to decision, but not when you really have finishers like these 2 women. You know, I don't see this going the distance. Ultimately, I see this playing either 2 ways. You know, Lemos knocks her out, or Jandiroba takes her down and keeps her down and dominates her there. I'm going to take the Jandiroba side, and I think that her grappling and BJJ is top notch, and I do think that Lemos' cardio is going to be tested here by Jandiroba's wrestling. I don't think she'll be able to keep it up on the feet. But ultimately, every round starts on the feet, so that's going to be a big factor here. But ultimately, absolutely, give me Jandiroba by decision. I mean, give me Jandiroba by submission. Ultimately, when it comes down to this, though, it's one of those things that if Jandiroba goes down to a negative 120, I could see a lot of money going to Jandiroba. But if she goes upwards towards a negative 145 or a negative 150 or even negative 160, a lot of money is going to go to Lemos' side. It's one of those things that it's a complete pick 'em. I definitely think either fighter can win. So if you're getting value at a plus 145 or plus 150 on Lemos, you take that. And if you're getting devalued at negative 145 and negative 150 on the Jandiroba side, then I would take that. I prefer negative 135 at most. That's my take. All right, guys, those are my breakdown and predictions for UFC Fight Night, Lemos versus Jandiroba. Drop a comment below on what your picks are on this event. If your picks win, I'll add your comments to the next breakdown as part of a new section of the video. But until then, that's all for me. Stay up.